Hey everyone, Cotton Candy TA here, and welcome to the course on mental analysis, defining the psychology, part 2. All right, if you're enjoying the content so far and haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and do so. If you want to support what I do, you can find those details in the video description. And if you haven't checked out the Twitter and TradingView account, I would suggest you do so, as on Twitter I post up my content release schedule and charts that I do on TradingView and things like that. All right, without further ado, let's get into part 2. All right, so if you haven't watched part 1, go ahead and watch part 1 because it's kind of the catalyst to this video. It goes over all the different things about mental analysis and the psychology and kind of sets up the preset to this map that I'm going to show you, or this graphic, whatever you want to call it. It goes over in detail some of the different psychological things that you'll need to understand to follow through on this. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and delete this little graphic that I had to hide the chart, and we're going to get into it. All right, so this is a map that I created for the purpose of understanding kind of the way the mind works, for people to kind of get a better grasp and handle on the psychology and the mental analysis behind the way the market moves, you know, some of the dangers that we face and what they do, some of the challenges that we come to as day traders with psychology, the impacts they have, you know, how do we take those impacts or those triggers and how do we turn them into something positive, and kind of what's the course, you know, that starts from this could possibly be a dangerous trigger to turning that into something positive and starting to train our mind. So this is a tool that I'm going to be uploading for people to use, that I just created on my own. Kind of took me a couple days to kind of navigate through all the ways that this thing could pan out, but I wanted to create this chart as a tool for people that you guys can print it or have it on your desktop, open it in PDF or whatever however you'd like to view it. And it will allow you to have a tool to guide through the tuning of your mental analysis. I haven't seen a chart like this before, so I'm hoping this helps. Maybe it doesn't, but anyways, it'll help you guys navigate through this video at the minimum. So, all right, let's get into this. So this is the dangers that we have in the market, and this is the active challenges. We're going to start out with the dangers first, okay? So what are some of the dangers that we face as traders with our psyche and our mental analysis? There's quite a few, so hang in there. Negative or positive profits on a trade. Now I'm going to talk about each one of these a little in depth. It's not just going to be me reading off the chart. I'm going to kind of talk this map through and what it does and how this works. So negative or positive profits on trade. Both of these create mental and emotional weight. So it's important to know that if you have a negative trade, so negative being that you've entered a trade and you have negative feelings in any way, so you lost a trade, an expectation you had didn't get hit, you had to walk away and you missed the target, so you just took a less amount of money, or you know, whatever, you lost your whole account, or whatever the situation is, a negative trade has a certain amount of mental and emotional weight. So if you follow this line here, negative trade goes down here, and this increases negative psychological impact. So I want you guys to follow this red line, right? So it increases negative psychological impacts, which adds mental and emotional weight to your mind. So every time you have a negative event happen, it creates a compounding pool or can or whatever pot, or this compounding area where you're collecting all these different things. So every time that negative event happens, you put a little bit of water in the pot, and then every time, you know, the second time it happens, you put a little bit more water in the pot of boiling water, and the third time you're putting more and more and more. So it's adding this compounding negative and emotional weight that will alter your decision making in a bad way, right? It's the effect on your psyche, it's the effect on your mental state of a negative or a positive trade too, right? Positive trades can have that same effect. You can have a positive trade increase negative psychological impacts that create mental and emotional weight, right? So a positive trade that increases the negative psychological impacts, right? We want to avoid any negative psychological impact. So a positive trade could be something where you entered a trade, you made 10% in 30 seconds, you exited the trade, you followed none of your rules, right? You didn't use any technical indicators other than you traded on a whim. You made 10%. Hey, maybe you made even 30%. Maybe it was like a crazy trade and you did really well, and you can relax the rest of the week, or you can go buy yourself a new whatever. That can have a negative impact too, because it creates a state of pseudo reality. It creates this faux state of reality where you start to think that you can just either revenge trade, or you can make these crazy moves that will generate this huge amount of profit. But what that really does, the negative part of that, what it really does is you're ignoring the rules, so it makes you think it's okay to ignore the rules, and you're ignoring the technicals, which makes you think it's okay to ignore the technicals because you have a feeling or a whim, right? So negative or positive trades, both sides have a emotional weight to them. And if you look at the bottom of the chart, before we go through the middle of this and all the processes in between, look at the outcome goal. So at the end of this whole chart, you have a couple outcomes. Outcome number one being a clear mind prior to and after two. Prior to and after two. A clear mind prior to and after every trade. There we go. Nailed it. So having a clear mind when you enter every trade and having a clear mind when you exit every trade is paramount to your success, because it will allow you to make decisions based on clarity and not based on emotions, right? Mental balance towards outcomes, right? So not allowing, another outcome is not allowing these mental and emotional weights that we carry, or this baggage, having that balance of neutrality in trading, towards every single outcome, whether it be positive, negative, or neutral. Having a balance, right? Not swinging from side to side of the pendulum, one side being a negative event, the other side being a positive event, not being anywhere but straight in the middle, right? Not being anywhere but dead set right in the middle without swinging at all, right? The goal is to not swing at all. It's to keep that needle right in the middle between two sections. So having that mental balance before and after a trade helps keep you right in the middle, which is kind of the goal of mental analysis, is complete neutrality in trading. It's looking at things from a mental state where you can say, I understand all the impacts. It won't affect me psychologically. So I can therefore make good trades based on my conscious decisions, and not based on genetic triggers that we're predisposed to, or market fear, or these other things, right? So losing or winning a trade, right? So profits or winning a trade, right? So those are two different things. So the first one being negative, positive profits, right? You can't let the dollar amount reflect a negative or positive outcome. Just like losing or winning, you could lose $1 or win $1, and maybe you have $1 million account and you lost $1. There's still that egotism there of, I lost the trade. So regardless of the profit amounts, regardless of the percentage, which would be the first line, and the second line would be more egotistical, regardless of the ego involved in that trade, whether you win $1 and you feel like a king and you say, trading's easy, I just won $1, yeah, or trading's tough, I lost $1 and I have $1 million, so I have $999,000 left and change, right? So stripping away that ego is very important. Not oversighting, not undersighting, right? Entering a trade too soon or too late. This is another danger, because this is indicative of not having a clear mind, right? Entering a trade too soon or too late because you're afraid you might miss the move. It's about to moon, and if you don't act now, you see all these buys going on. You don't act now, and it's like, oh, I just entered too late or too soon, and you just lost or won money. Whether it's winning or losing money, either side of that has a negative increase on our psychological impacts, because it adds a preset idea to your mind that this is okay. It says, this is okay because I won, or this is okay because I lost, so now I'm going to revenge trade, right? It either creates market fear or it creates an ignoring of rules, right? It's that swinging back and forth and staying in the middle. And that goes right into our next thing, not following the rules. You have to follow your rules, your mental your MA rules and your TA rules, your mental and technicals, right? And having expectations, right? Not following the rules, we're not going to go over that one too much. It's pretty self-explanatory. You don't follow the rules, you're going to create that preset idea that it's okay to constantly do this. And when you win a trade, Oh, I didn't do it last time, so no worries. I don't have to do it this time, right? And I'm just going to keep winning trades. You may win 9 trades in a row like that, but it's going to be very detrimental to your mental state, which will one day bite you hard, right? Yeah. Uh, having expectations, right? We talked about that in the first video about expectation and reality. If you have an expectation that something is going to come to fruition, so you're saying I have this expectation to make this amount, that you can have no expectations in trading. The training of your mental state dictates that we can have no expectations in trading. Once we have expectations, we are creating a preset rule, right? Or not a preset rule, but kind of this predetermined outcome. And when we have predetermined outcomes and they don't work out to the exact way we've planned it, it creates a trigger, right? It creates that emotional state, or that mental weight. And even when our expectation is hit, even if we have an expectation and that expectation gets hit, well, guess what? That's just creating the other side of it. All that's doing is further creating that it's okay to not have a rule, or it's okay to trade like this. It's okay to, take these wild swings because I make money on them and I'm like the best, man. It's like, no problem. Can't have that. Can't have that expectation on yourself. It will bite you one day, even if you're, the perfect, whatever trader in the moment. Trust me. I won't be the only one to tell you that. Lots of people will tell you that. And then creative failure. And what creative failure is the failure of your charts not working out. So the creative process of doing the technicals. So you've done the technicals and they didn't work out for some reason because you missed a level, or you've missed a level, or the trade didn't work out in some way or another, but for some reason your technicals failed you. That also creates mental and emotional weight. Instead of saying like, oh, I'm getting down on yourself and saying like maybe this is not for me, I'm not cut out for this. Like, it takes years to learn this stuff. It takes years, and it takes a lot of failing and a lot of realization, right? So having that creative failure, having that breakdown in the technicals, you take that negative event and you create a positive outcome in it. And we're going to get into that later with the analysis and analytical process. When you have creative failure, see it as an action to improve yourself, right? See it as a request to break down your chart and see where you were wrong. Don't take it as the emotional and mental weight that it creates. Don't take it as, I'm not good at this, I can't do this, I'm not meant for this. Don't take it so harshly, right? Act with neutrality, because that's a part of mental awareness and mental analysis. If you are a bad trader, but you can look at yourself in the mirror, or you can look at your failure without feeling down, and you can look at that creative breakdown and that failure, and you can say, okay, let me think about this for a second. Let me take a deep breath and look at my chart and see what I did wrong. And when you can do that, you are very, very far ahead. You are way further than most people, because most people cannot do that. I don't know the statistic. I don't know the number. If I had to guess, I would say 95% of traders don't have the mental structure or the mental framework to be able to take a bad trade and say, this is good because now I can use this as fuel. Now I can take that failed move. I can dissect the move and see where I was wrong, so I don't make that mistake in the future. Or if I do make that mistake in the future, I've at least identified it now, so when I make it again, I can say, that's right, I saw this before and this is why I failed. And you can start to build up that repertoire of not doing it. So if you can take failure and you can take mental and emotional weight, if you can take this red side, if you can take this part of it, this mental and emotional weight, and clean the slate, right? Dump the pot of water out where, the pot of boiling water where all these things are compounding, and you can constantly clear that pot by dumping it in the sink and just saying like, all this bad stuff happened, but it's not going to affect me. Or maybe it is going to affect me, but at that point I'm going to step away and I'm going to refocus my mind. I'm going to take some time for my own little bit of spiritual healing or mental healing, whatever you want to call it. And just take that time to yourself. But if you can do that, you are further ahead than most people. Yeah. So this is the dangers of trading. These are the mental and emotional weights, and there's more to it than this, but this just gives you guys kind of a good round idea of some dangers, right? Yeah, and you'll add your own things to this. Maybe you'll scribble on here a few things that you find your own dangers, or maybe you'll elaborate this list into 20 more things. Maybe you'll add like 25 things. I don't know. You'll find your own dangers, but this is just kind of a broad understanding to seeing what dangers are, why they exist, and kind of what they do to us. And they increase our negative psychological impacts, which adds mental and emotional weight, right? So if you follow that red line, that's how that is. Now, active challenges. What can we actively do to help us in these situations? What can we actively do to start creating a mental toolkit, or start saying, okay, I'm aware of mental analysis, but how do I now turn that into something where I can benefit from it? Or how do I turn that into a system that allows me to be constantly increasing as a trader, constantly bettering myself by refining these things, right? Before we go into the active challenges, realize that there is a mental and emotional weight to the active challenges too, right? So your active challenge is two things. It's recognizing shortcomings and it's recognizing virtue. So recognizing shortcomings is saying, I had a shortcoming because I didn't follow a rule, or I entered this trade too early or too late because I didn't properly do my technicals. I revenge traded because I was angry about the trade I lost before. I was impatient, so I entered this trade because I just kind of wanted to make money and I didn't really know what else to do. So those are examples of shortcomings, things that you could have prevented had you, if you had the ability to reverse time. You could go back in time and say, well, I could prevent this. There was a preventative measure for this. There was a preventative medicine that allowed me to not do this, which I can now take that, understand that preventative measure, and I can apply that in the future, right? So recognizing shortcomings has a positive effect on our psychological impact because you're recognizing where you're pitfalling. So that's the key right there. That's the golden nugget. When you recognize what you did wrong, right? When all these dangers here, all this whole danger section here, the danger zone, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, recognizing those shortcomings has put you on the highway going 120 miles an hour. You are going at a speed that can't be slowed down unless it's right, whatever. I don't know. This is just a weird example, but that's the golden key right there, is when you can recognize them, you can say, oh, I did something wrong. How do I prevent it in the future? And then the other side of that is recognizing virtue. So when you've done something great and you've made a great trade and you feel like you're on top of the world because you have your mental analysis so tuned up. Say you let's use this as an example. Say you study this chart and you perfect mental analysis, and you become you enter virtue, where it's like everything is perfect and I'm this great trader and I have all this perfect mental awareness and I'm the king, and you've made all these great trades and you're now teaching somebody else mental awareness because you're just that good. That's a pitfall. That's where you need to recognize virtue. So having that glorification, or that overdeveloped skill set, and thinking that you're ahead of everything because you're so far, that increases a negative psychological impact. So if you actually see this, there's one red line here. So in dangers and in active challenges, in all aspects of trading, we have psychological impacts that can be mentally harming to us, that can affect our awareness state or our mental state in bad ways. And even when we're doing everything perfect, we cannot let our egos and we cannot let that perfection start to affect us, because when perfection starts to affect us and when our ego gets too big and we start to become too perfect at what we do, we start to foresight the things and miss the steps in between. So we refuse to break down the analyticals because we're so perfect anyways. Who cares? I'm making big money. I'm perfect. I don't need to break down the analyticals. I'm the king. Or kind of the idea that, well, I'm always neutral anyways, so it doesn't matter. That over-realization of being too good at mental awareness adds a psychological impact. It adds the ignoring of mental analysis, because again, if you're too good, then you're not in a neutrality zone where it's just like filling an order, right? That's the goal of this, is just to be in that mental state where you're just filling an order, right? You're just picking a trade because of technicals, and you have the mental analysis tuned up where you can say, okay, the technicals look good. All right, this trade looks good. I don't really have any expectations. I can get out of this trade if it starts to fail. I don't have to hold this coin to prove a point. I don't have to get out of this in revenge trade. And if I lose 1%, then I lose 1% and I stop out of the trade, and no problem. let's analyze the charts and see where I made my mistakes. We recognize those shortcomings so we can fix them in the future. And then we just say, yeah, no problem, just on to the next one. It's just a set of data, right? It's just taking an order and filling an order. Let me order like I said before, let me order a Big Mac with no pickles and no onions, with a large fry and a diet Sprite. All you're doing is filling an order or data set or a query of some type. So virtue and shortcomings both have positive and negative effects, right? So be aware of that. What do we do to actually, going down here now to the next part of this chart, what do we actually do to start? We've seen the active challenges, and we've recognized the shortcomings, and we've recognized the virtue. We understand the dangers. What can we actually do that starts increasing our flow? And what can we actually do that makes it effective for us to now start training our minds? That's where the analysis and analytical process comes. And you want to break down winning and losing trades, right? So this is, if you want to think of winning trades as recognizing virtue, when you have virtue and you're doing great in trading and you're making all these winning trades, you still want to break down why your trades were winning. You still want it once in a while, and try to practice it often. I think that's probably a pitfall that I have too. I think that's a pitfall of every profitable trader in the world. They don't take the time to break down their winning trades. They don't, even I'm guilty of that. I need to spend more time breaking down my winning trades and just going back and saying, wow, this was a great trade. I had mental clarity. I marked out my levels. I won X amount of percentage on my account, and it was a winning trade. And to go back and break down those winning trades, to understand that you had mental clarity, you saw the correct levels, and you had the right correct targets, and whatever, all your technicals. Break down your winning trades, because that's a healthy part of this process. When you start to get, and it's not to say, oh, I could have done this, a couple points better, I could have done this a couple pips higher or lower. It's not to refine your technicals. You don't break this down to refine your technicals, not on the winning side. On the losing side you can, but not on the winning side. On the winning side, you don't break it down to refine your technicals. What you're doing is you are looking at why you made a good trade and understanding that you made the good trade based on these reasons, and to not let that have the negative impact on your mind of, I'm too perfect, I'm too good, and you're on that side of the room where you're in too much of a positive zone. You've swung the pendulum too far to the opposite side, too far to saying I'm the best, I'm good, I'm this, I'm that, because at that point, when you enter that side of the room, when you're standing against that wall, or the pendulum has swung to that side of the clock or whatever, that's when you start to ignore rules. So that's the power in breaking down winning trades, is to see, okay, I did this trade good, I stayed clear, and on to the next one. Right? Again, you're just filling an order. So that's where you want to break down your winning trade, is to not get overconfident and egotistical with your trades. And you break down your losing trades as well. So out of all these active challenges and the dangers we realize, we take this, right? We take this map and we identify the dangers, right? And we do the active challenge of either recognizing the shortcomings in our trade or recognizing the virtue in our trade. And we break down, right? We break down the losing. Why did it lose? Was it a mental breakdown, or was it a technical breakdown? Did I enter this based on mental triggers? Right? Was I revenge trading? Did I get in too soon or too late? Or did I miss something in my technicals? That's mental awareness, and that's mental training, because you have to have the mindset to say, there's a breakdown somewhere. How do I fix it? It might be a technical error. It might be a technical analysis error, and this stops here, and you have to go and you have to refine your technicals a bit, or maybe you miss something, you're not understanding a concept of some type, and you have to go and refine your technicals. This will help you refine yourself as a technical trader as well. This will give you the better set of tools to be a better technician, right? Or a chart scientist, or whatever you want to call it. So, it could be one of two things. It could be a technical or mental breakdown, right? So identifying that, when you know what it is, you know what to fix. If it's a mental breakdown, you can say, okay, obviously I entered this trade too soon, right? It's this scenario. Maybe I entered this trade too soon because I was frustrated because I didn't enter the previous trade and it made all this money and I lost. So it was a mental breakdown. Or maybe I had negative profits based on technicals. This will allow you to refine your technicals and your mental analysis, right? Your technical and mental analysis. And when we do that, once we get to this point here. So once we have been able to successfully break down winning and losing trades, that's when we can, I told you guys earlier that, kind of the idea of this is that these anchors in our mind, this mental state is like filling a pot of boiling water, where you add a teaspoon or half a cup or a quarter of a cup at a time until the pot is so full, the pot of boiling water is so full that you have to dump it out in the sink. Otherwise it's just going to make a mess everywhere, and it's like uncontrollable. It's spraying everywhere and you're getting burned, and it's just a bad situation, right? So you have to take that pot and empty that pot into the sink. That's where the mental and emotional relief comes in. When you improve on your mental or technical analysis based on these two factors here. So when you break down your winning and losing trades, and you use that awareness that you identified in this active challenge, when you take that responsibility of saying, I'm going to actively recognize if this was a shortcoming or a virtue, I am going to analyze why and what based on the dangers, right? Based on these dangers, I'm going to analyze the why and the what. You are going to be able to dump that pot of water and give yourself that emotional and mental relief, because you are going to say, oh, I failed this trade because I was revenge trading, or I didn't follow my rules. So clearly I had a breakdown and a misconception, and clearly I made the mistake. So now I can relieve myself of those emotional states. Now I can clear my mind and act from a point of neutrality. Now I can empty that pot of water and start this process over without holding that baggage that gives you market fear and degenerates your ability to trade rapidly, right? It leaves that poison in your system, right? Now you can get rid of that poison. Now you can heal yourself. Now you can clear your mind, you can clear your spirit, and you can be healthy with your trading, because in the end, it's all about healthy trading, right? You use the mental and emotional relief when you break down the winning and losing trades. You take away the answer, and that empties the pot of water. That clears the emotional state, so that you can then therefore be a good trader again. You can be a mentally positive and mentally clear trader. And the outcome goal, right? The outcome goal is to have a clear mind prior to and after every trade. So now as you go through this, you can see that if you follow this mind map or idea chart or flow chart, or how, whatever you call it, it has whatever name. When you get to this point here, and in every trade, when you get to this step here where you're in the mental and emotional relief, you have a clear mind after the trade. You have gone through this mind map or this idea map, and you have been able to get to this point. If you are able to get to this point, you have accomplished a huge goal. You have now gave yourself the hammer in your tool set to build the house, or whatever. I don't know, whatever analogy you want to use. If you can get to this point through this map, right? If you stop here, if you just see the danger, but you don't do anything to change it, if you don't actually train your mental awareness, and if you don't actually rewire your mental state, if you can't get down here, right, you won't have a clear mind after every trade. And if you don't have a clear mind after the last trade, you can never have a clear mind going into the next trade. So this is hand in hand, right? This is improving our mental and technical analysis, and getting that mental and emotional relief is the catalyst to having a clear mind prior to and after every trade. Because if you have a clear mind after the trade, you're going to have a clear mind prior to the next trade, right? Unless something in your personal life has happened, and in that case, you probably shouldn't be trading if you're not in the right mind state to trade anyway. So that these are the outcome goals, and this is how you get there. This is the 1, 2, 3 steps, or 4, 5, 6. I don't know how many steps are in here. Could be 10. It depends how you break it down. Could be 20. I don't know. But that is how you have the outcome goal. That is the point of this, is to get as far down this chart as you can. And another outcome goal is mental balance towards outcomes, and that comes with clear mind after and prior to every trade, right? Mental balance towards outcomes. You can't, we've kind of gone over this in the whole entire video. The pendulum can't swing to one or the other side. It has to stay right in the middle, because you have to act with neutrality. And that's the last wording here, the last line: complete neutrality in trading. That balance will give you neutrality, whether you're winning or losing. Go through the process, break down the steps, get to this point where you can break down your trade and where it failed, so that you can fix it in the future, and that will empty the pot of bad water, or cure the poison in your mind. So you will then be acting from a place of complete neutrality and you'll have mental balance towards outcomes, and you won't be affected one way or another. And when you have bad trades, they're not going to be a hindrance on you. They're just going to be a learning experience, and it's just going to be, okay, there was a breakdown somewhere. Let me identify and move on, right? You'll have better outcomes, and better outcomes all around in your trading career and in life in general, with neutrality and balance towards your mindset. So mental analysis, to kind of finish this thing off, when I learned proper mental analysis, that was the turning point for my trading career. You know, I know all these great technicals, and I teach you guys the science of trading, and at a very high level, at an institutional level, I'm teaching you guys how to chart and trade. But really, mental analysis is the successful versus the unsuccessful trader. And it's 100% true, and I will stand by that. The training of your mind and your mental state will dictate whether you can do this as a career, for a living, even as a hobby. Even if you're trading as a hobby, you don't want to have a poisonous hobby. You don't want to have a hobby that stresses you out, or a hobby that you don't enjoy. If you're doing this as a career, you want to be happy every day. You won't have longevity in your career if you can't control your mental states, because you'll just be miserable, right? So mental awareness was my turning point, and mental analysis was my turning point, and starting to understand and grasp these concepts and work with them all the time, to have these outcome goals, and to be able to tune myself all the time. That was my turning point. And like many of the great traders, they'll all tell you the same thing. It's protecting your mind, and it's preserving your sanity, I guess. Best way to say it, preserving your sanity. Yeah, again, if you haven't heard it yet, I did mention it in the last video. Go check out Trading in the Zone by Mark Douglas. It was a game changer for me. Now this stuff isn't in Trading in the Zone. This is my own creation, my own cool thing that I did. But I'm gonna upload this in the video anyway, and have a link to download it, so you guys can have this chart on hand. And like I said, it took me a few days to make this, of kind of thinking and sitting down and really breaking down how this thing works out. So I hope this helps a lot of people out there. I hope you guys use this, and that'll wrap it up for the course on mental analysis. And next will come the advanced training. So I hope you guys enjoyed the mental analysis, and that's it for now. Take care. See you on the next one. Bye.